do support it, but what I'm really sure of is we need to have a really serious public debate about it, because in the medium term you're going to see an increase in urbanisation. There's no doubt that is happening across the world, and Ireland's only chance of having a major city that can compete internationally is Dublin, and therefore we have to look at the way Dublin is being run and say, is this the best model for government for Dublin? Now, the City Council did a survey very recently and 61% were in favour of a directly elected mayor. About a quarter weren't sure, which is fair enough because we haven't had much of a debate, and then there was a small group of about 14% that were against. So we need to put the options out there, because there are a number of options, and one of the jobs that central government has tasked the Lord Mayor of Dublin with, which is now me, is to convene a forum from the 4 Dublin local authorities to look at the options by reference to other examples abroad and their rationale, and put it out for public debate. Now, you're right, you mentioned the New York example, so that's an example of a strong executive mayor, and that's certainly one of the examples, and London is in that model as well, although with less range of powers than the New York model. You then also have some other examples of cities that have a directly elected mayor who works with the council by appointing councillors who are also elected to kind of mini cabinet positions like housing and waste and transport and economic development for a city. And then you would have maybe what you see in Dallas, which is a directly elected mayor who's really just a strong representative and ambassador for the city. But even that's important, because particularly for businesses in a city, they like to travel with the mayor of that city when they're going abroad, because it gives them some kind of validation. And equally, everyone internationally knows that cities have mayors, so it's really important you have a public figure that represents the city well.
So is the Dallas version kind of a glorified version of what we have now, really?
It would be like a 5-year directly elected Lord Mayor of Dublin, exactly. So, you know, people might feel, well, that's a lot of trouble just to have that role. And at the moment, I personally would tend towards one of the first two options, the more executive mayor with expanded roles on transport and tourism and policing, as well as housing, waste, economic development and planning. So that'll be my own personal view, but I actually think we need to have a good debate on this, because in truth the desire for this is coming from outside politics. I mean, the Dublin Chamber of Commerce have been campaigning for this for more than 10 years, saying they're not satisfied that the government system for Dublin is strong enough to make the decisions we need. And a really classic example of that is around transport. Anyone who's travelled abroad over the last 10-20 years, when they go to another city, suddenly arrives and says, hang on, integrated transport, it just seems to all work, and you come back to Dublin and it's all so disjointed. Like, we had a scenario where Dublin Bus, when the Lewis lines were being proposed, was against the 2 Lewis lines being joined up, because I think they wanted to remain as the only player who had full city centre transport connectivity. So we need to have a much more integrated model, not silos of transport companies, and that's just one of the examples. So for the city to compete internationally, because Dublin isn't competing with Cork or Galway or Belfast, Dublin is competing with your Copenhagen's, Vienna's, Barcelona's, Edinburgh's. That's the kind of cities. We need a strong city that can make decisions to take Dublin forward, and that'll actually be good for Ireland.